Okay, so let's look at this example again before we do our area of a circle application. We've seen this before. So we've added, in this example, this is similar to what we've done in example 9, right here. So all I did is copy and paste what was in here and put it in this example. Okay, now this would, let me repeat, what would this do? So let me recompile this, compile and run. Okay, so if you add a couple numbers, let's say 1.0 plus 2.0, and you wanted to set the precision yourself, but notice that the output doesn't show up with 1 decimal or a precision to up to 1 decimal point. Okay, and then that could be a detrimental on an exam if you're taking a physics exam or something like that. That's not a good idea. So is there a way to format the output so that it would show the precision? Let's fix this particular program to show that, okay, to solve for that problem. And then within this same video right now, we're going to create another file to do the area of a circle. And we could decide how many decimal point precisions we need, right? So right now, let's fix this one. You're going to need a couple things. One, you're going to need an extra library called include IO manip, right? So remember that. Okay, we will formally look at all the library utilities out there for the standard library for C++, depending on which version of C++ you're using, okay, and look at all sorts of goodies in there that can come in handy. Now that's not enough. You need to do a couple things. Remember, we want to format the output, so we're going to concentrate right here. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to type the word fixed. That's because you want to make sure that the decimal point is fixed, and then set the precision, so it's a function, set precision, and let's say to 1, and notice these two keywords, fixed, set precision is a function, and you give it a value. How far do you want to set the precision to? Okay, so these two need to be there on your output stream to make sure that you can format it to 1 decimal point. Okay, all right, well, let's see how it works. So same example, so I'm going to compile and run. Okay, and I'm going to enter 1.1, and let's say I enter 2, right? So let's see what it does for us. And notice it sets the precision for all members to 1 decimal point, right? Even though from the keyboard it looked like I entered an integer, but it technically should be 2.0 if your precision is at 1 decimal point for your first measurement, right? Okay, so I hope that helps there. So we're going to use the same technique now for the next program right now, in the same video right now, for calculating the area of a circle. Okay, well, let's do that. So we know that the area of a circle is pi r squared. So always make sure that you understand what formulas you're going to be using to calculate the output based on some input. So you have a system that takes a radius and it will output an area, right? So let's go ahead and create a new program from scratch. We're going to call this one example 11. Oops. Example 11.cpp, and we're going to calculate. So I want a block, so put an asterisk here, and then type calculate or evaluate the area of a circle given a radius as input. We're going to make it a runtime program where we're going to ask the user to input a radius, right? And it will give us the area of that circle. Okay, now we've seen we need a couple libraries. We need IOStream and we need IO manip if we were to set the precision for the output. So let's start with that. Include IO stream for C out and C in, and then include IO manip. Next, using name space std, and again, I will go through that line some other time to explain exactly what it's doing, but it's making our life easier, I assure you, by having it there. So int main, here's our function. Always close the curly brace as soon as you can so you don't make a mistake. And put your system pause here. Depends if you're operating in DOS. That might not be necessary at all, okay? And then return 0. So if your output just blinks, you may want to hold the screen like I'm doing. Okay. Now, this is a system. It's a function. So basically a system does a job. You give it an input and it gives you an output. Sometimes some systems might have multiple inputs and multiple outputs. Okay. So for this one, it's fairly straightforward. It's got one input, which is radius, and an output, which is the area. Okay. So that means I need double. So let me break down my program into sections. I'm going to call this one declaration block. Okay. And then here I'm going to assign value, assignments. And here I am going to process. And then here I'm going to output. So I'm breaking down my program into logical sections. What is it exactly I'm going to do strategically? So for my declarations, I am going to do double, radius, and area. I don't know their values. The radius will be entered during runtime. Okay. That will be in the assignment block. And we will process for the area accordingly. However, we need pi. Now, can we do something like this? Const, so we can't change it, double pi equals 3.14. Now you could set it up to whatever precision you want. So now we're at 2 decimal points. So let's keep it that way. All right, so everything will be at 2 decimal points from this point. All right, so now we're going to ask the user to enter a radius, right? So cout, enter a radius, or the radius of the circle, and then cn, radius. Now notice the way I name my variables. Very important. Nothing cryptic, no R, no A, nothing fancy. If you mean radius, write radius. If you mean area, write area. As long as you don't start with a number for a variable name. So name your variables where they're relevant as to what kind of data they represent or hold. Okay, great. So now this block here handles the radius. Now we're going to handle the area, which is the output. Now we know the area. Okay, it's pi r squared. All right, so that would be pi times, right, radius squared. Now, I haven't shown you something else, so radius, right now you're going to multiply by itself. I have not shown you how to raise something to a certain power. At this stage, let's say your knowledge is limited to this, so you're going to have to square it, multiply by itself. You're going to end up doing something like this. Okay? Now, what would be a better way than this? Well, you need an extra library, and that would be the math library to do this. So that would be in our next video where we're going to improve this program, and we could raise things to a certain power. We could do some other conversions. We're going to have access to a whole bunch of other functions we could use. But right now, let's suppose you're just entering it raw, the way it is. Radius times radius. Okay? Excellent. So now the output. Now this is where we're going to do our formatting. So cout. Now remember the keyword fix we used? Excellent. Set precision. Precision. Let's hope I don't misspell precision. And we're going to set it to 2. Okay. And then you could say something like this. The area of this circle equals. You could write whatever you want here. You could have printed the value for the radius as well. Now let's see how this works. Okay, so we're gonna compile and run this program. I did not save it, so I'm gonna call it example 11. And let's make this screen a little bigger here. So I'm just going to go to its properties, change the font family, get to a larger font size. There you go. And now let's say I entered 1.23. Okay, and you can see that the area of that circle is 4.75. Okay, you can check your calculator and with your calculator to see if these results are correct. They should be. All right, so I hope you've learned a lot from this. So our next video, we're going to improve on this program where we're going to include another library and with which we could do pi r squared instead of pi radius times radius.